I always say the issue isn't that you're too nice, it's that you're too afraid to say no, or that for some other reason you struggle to put your foot down, you struggle to not tolerate certain bad, unhealthy behaviors. You're too concerned with hurting feelings, which to a certain extent that's good, but not to the detriment of you being honest, transparent, or you getting what you need in a relationship. And so I want you as a woman to stop these quote unquote nice girl habits. Now, I've talked about this before. I gave 5 before, but I got 7 more today, okay? And some of these are what I consider very serious issues we need to discuss, all right? So, with no further ado, let's just get it going right now, okay? The first big one, hold on to your seats. I don't want some to be bothered by this topic, but we gotta talk about it. A big nice girl habit you gotta stop doing is not being honest about his sexual performance. Now listen, this is not to say you should be having sex with this man already, or if you're not married to him, whatever. I'm not here to discuss that aspect of it. We all recognize there are people who are waiting, there are people who are doing it now. It is your choice, right? But no matter which one you fall under, what I have seen over and over and over again are women not being honest and transparent about the man's quality of performance in the bedroom, as well as not being honest and transparent about what she really needs to be sexually receptive to him. All right. So I remember one time, uh, it was at a party. This was a long time ago, but it was a party. This was when I was much, much younger. Long story short, there was a bunch of us talking outside. We're like sitting on the front porch, and I don't know how it came up, but one girl was talking about the guy she's with. She's been with him for 2 years. She loves him, all this stuff, thinks he's a great guy. And I don't know how the sex part came up, but she ended up acknowledging, well, he doesn't know I've never had an orgasm with him. So this man, for 2 years, thinks he's King Dingaling in the bedroom. I don't know why I always use that title, but he thinks he's doing it big. He thinks he is laying it down. And the whole time, she's never experienced orgasm. Now, some of you might say, well, Stephan, we can still enjoy it even though that's not happening. Okay, I hear you. I understand that. But in this example, it wasn't all that to her regardless. And what she explained was, I don't want to hurt his feelings, and I just feel like I like him too much to let that ruin the situation. Okay? So I understand why a lot of women are not transparent. And there's the concern that men's egos are very fragile, and so they don't know how to take that constructive criticism. I get it. The problem is those same women who don't say anything during the dating or boyfriend-girlfriend phase or whatever, and they're not really satisfied, that carries over into marriage. And at some point, even if you don't want to let him go, despite his struggle in that area, if you are not motivated enough to be receptive to him sexually and pour into him in that way, well, we are setting the stage for a huge problem later. Because sexual neglect or sexual inactivity, however, I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly right now, but lack of sex, okay, is a huge contributor to a lot of people struggling right now in their marriage. And there's this huge disconnect with men and women, or more specifically right now, with men understanding what that woman needs to even be receptive to her. And because the fact is, she never really liked it that much, whether with him or even for some people in general, okay? And that's what not being honest about this is going to turn into for a lot of people. So yeah, you may not leave him, but if you're not willing to lay down with him as often, we still have a problem, okay? So it's important, and not to mention, I want you to get yours. Like I want you as a woman to enjoy yourself in the bedroom too. I don't want you to be in a marriage and not have that need fulfilled. I want everyone to be happy, man and woman. And if we're going to get to that happy place, we need to create more honesty and transparency as quickly as possible in a relationship. Now, whatever the point is that you cross that line of being intimate, I would say even before we get to that point, I would really love to see more couples establish a safe space of communication where we can constructively criticize or constructively suggest how we can make this better for each other. And if you want to be able, or if you want him to be more receptive to what you have to say about that, and you want to soften the blow of your suggestions, okay, you have to be open to his as well. You can't, I know there's a lot of women who just naturally assume they're just great in bed, no complaint. And it's like, no, there might be some things that he would like adjusted as well. Okay. And I think what's great about establishing those kind of conversations as early as possible is that one, we may discover that we're just not on the same page sexually, and this is just going to be a disaster waiting to happen. So let's not push this thing any further. Or again, we can create an environment and experience that's so enjoyable for the both of us that only strengthens the relationship. That only strengthens the marriage. All right. It will bring two people closer together when they truly know how to satisfy each other in this area. So again, I know it can be scary. I think, of course, you have to be mindful of how you make these suggestions, these constructive criticisms, but I definitely think you've got to establish that early on. And for those of you who say, well, you know, some of these men you just can't talk to about that. Well, if you can't talk to him about it, why would you be with him then? Because it won't stop there. If he's unable to hear you out, and again, with an issue that is going to be beneficial to both, because if he learns how to better satisfy you, you will be more motivated to satisfy him. And therefore, any fears or concerns he has of the intimacy falling off later in life with you can be diminished, because now we understand how we need to show up for each other. Now, before I move on to this next point, let me also say this, because one of the things that frustrates me as a coach is I feel like so many women in general, forget very specific situations, the general public in society is essentially lying to men about what is really needed to create healthy, successful, long-term sexual dynamic in their marriage and long-term relationships, right? And part of that is because I don't think there's enough of discussion about what the woman needs outside the bedroom that feeds inside the bedroom. So I always say the connection outside the bedroom feeds the connection inside the bedroom. But if he is being told, and this is what's happening with a lot of men, they're being told that women are just as sexual as them, which I 100% disagree with. I know some of y'all may not like that, and I'll eventually make a video up to break that whole thing down. But women and men are different, very different. It doesn't mean there aren't women out there who are just as sexual or more sexual than a man. Some women right now have the higher libido than their partner in marriage. However, in general, and even with the higher libido, in general, there are still some very significant differences that people have to be mindful of. And one of the most common ones is how where a woman is mentally and emotionally will have a huge impact on her being receptive sexually and her even being able to enjoy the experience, even if she engages. Okay, if she's overly stressed, if she has too much to think about, there's too much going on, that can throw everything off. That doesn't work exactly the same for the majority of men. I always make the joke, World War III could be going on outside and men are still going to be focused in that moment. A lot of them, okay? But for a woman, it could be as simple as the kids are at someone else's house that she doesn't feel comfortable with. That by itself can throw her whole energy off sexually, where she either will not be receptive or not be able to enjoy it because her mind is elsewhere. Now, there's a lot more I can break down with that. We won't get into all that. I will just wrap this point up by saying I want you to be more honest and transparent about the quality of the experience and what can be adjusted to make things better. All right, so another nice girl habit you need to break immediately is investing more than him in the relationship. Okay. And I even have to use the word situationship. And here's why. There's a lot of women who are in quote unquote situationships. So essentially dealing with a man romantically, but there is no defined label. There is no, we're not official. You guys aren't official in this relationship, right? It's a situation. And in hoping that that situation turns into an official relationship, there's a lot of women who are going above and beyond to pour into this man who doesn't pour back into them. Okay? And again, and the reason why I put this under the whole nice girl habit is because some women will hide behind the, well, I'm just a giver and I'm a nurturer and I just want to do all these things. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not knocking that, and I don't disagree that some women are, or a lot of women are just natural givers and nurturers. But you got to be real with yourself when a lot of this is being done out of fear, out of low self-esteem, out of just hoping he'll choose you, even though he's not showing that. And again, my issue is not the pouring into, it's not the investing you're making into him. It's the fact that you're not receiving it in return, yet you continue to do it. That is the problem. Now, let me be clear. Investing in the relationship is not a tit for tat thing. It doesn't mean it have to be the exact things. So, let's just say, and I'm just giving this as an example. Let's just say you are cooking for this man. You're doing all kinds of wifely stuff. You cooking, you clean, you're making sure he's good, making him a lunch, whatever. Okay? So I'm not expecting that he does those exact same things for you. But what the hell is the man doing for you? He's got to be doing something. He's got to be pouring back into you in some kind of way. I don't want this to sound funny. Is he helping with some bills? I mean, and listen, I'm only even suggesting that because, again, if you're doing so much for him, what value is he presenting back in return? How is he pouring back into you in return? That's all. So it doesn't have to be a bill. That's just what came to my head first. But some of y'all are like, nah, it needs to be a bill. But listen, something. There's got to be, an exchange. We got to be pouring back into each other. So the point here is, when you're crossing that line, you've got to really ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I giving so much and not getting in return? And if you are comfortable with the giving, and that's a big thing. Like, if you're generally comfortable with the giving, and one of the ways you can know if you're truly genuinely comfortable is ask yourself, if he does not make you his woman, will you feel cheated and used for what you poured into him? Let me say that again. If he does not make you his woman, will you feel cheated and used with all the things that you poured into him? If you can generally say, no, I wouldn't, I would be disappointed, but I'm okay because I did those things out of the pureness of my heart and my desire, and that's it, okay, then I can't argue with that. But if you know you're gonna feel some kind of way if the end result isn't things becoming official or him marrying you or whatever the case may be, that means you went way beyond the line and you need to scale it back. Or at the very least, you can first check the situation by saying, hey, this is what I need from you in return. And if I cannot get you to pour back into me in return, then we can't do this anymore. And I know some of y'all may feel like, well, why do we have to have that conversation? You don't have to. I'm giving you a suggestion, and I'm giving that suggestion because I know many of you don't want to have to walk away or don't want to have to scale it back. So at the very least, have that conversation. And I'm hoping that in that conversation, either he will be willing to step up to the plate and now you guys are both pouring into each other, or you will gain greater clarity that this man is wasting your time and it's time to let him go. All right, so let's keep this going. We got a few more to go. And another big nice girl habit that you need to break right away is loaning that man money or giving him money. So we just talked about investing more than this guy, but let's speak specifically on finances. Now, of course, I know there's plenty of you that's like, hell no, I wouldn't loan no man that I'm just dating some money. All right, cool. But the reality is there are many who are currently in that situation. And I don't want y'all to feel like shamed or beat yourself up at this point after hearing me mention this. But I want you to be aware, and I want you to at least be aware going forward on how to better handle these situations. Now, the reason why loaning money is a habit that needs to be broken is because, or one of the many reasons is because I have seen it create or contribute to unhealthy attachments in a lot of dating situations. Essentially, you have a woman, she loans this man money, and now because she's hoping to get her money back, even though she knows at this point this man is not for her, she doesn't want to let him go because she want her money. Like, I mean, she's trying to get paid back. So she's trying to time this thing and make sure she can get that first before walking away. And that's a very bad position to be in. That's an unhealthy position to be in. Because now, especially if he is sensing that this is the leverage that he has over you, if he because not every man who asks to borrow money is a manipulator and all these things, but if you happen to have that kind of guy, oh, now he's gonna really use this to his advantage and hold this over your head. So you don't want to be in that position. Not to mention, I think that for not all, because again, I do not want to demonize every situation where a man has asked to borrow money from a woman that he is dating or in an official relationship with. However, I do think that in many, if not most, it's a huge red flag. It's a red flag in general, because again, red flags are to be addressed and explored, and then we can see if this is really what it is or not, okay? So it's a red flag as far as you should address it or look further into this. But it for a lot of guys who are users, this can expose that, okay? And what you have to ask yourself when a guy is asking to borrow money from you, one, is this a man that provides for you financially? Because that's a very different scenario. If we're talking about a guy who's been there for you, and this is hitting my spirit, so I have to mention this. Don't get this confused with, because what I've seen is you have a situation where the guy has done little things for the woman. So he might pay for dinner here and there, maybe, and let's say it's very inexpensive things, $50 here, $100 here. He may do little things, right? So in her mind, it's, oh, he provides for me financially, right? But then when it comes time for him to ask to borrow money, it's like $5,000, okay? So it's almost like, yeah, he makes you feel good about what he's doing at this lower level. For him, it's almost like, and I've seen this, where it's like he's setting the investment up. He's setting it up to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to make her feel like I take care of her. I have no problem spending some money on her, even though it's very lower or it's much lower amounts, because he knows he plans on asking for a much bigger amount. Okay? So when I say, if this is a guy who's providing for you financially, we got to keep the bottom line is, if he has spent hundreds of dollars on you, then you shouldn't be loaning him thousands. All right? But if it's hundreds all right, cool. I don't think that's a big problem. I don't think that's a big deal. Okay? But the point that I want to make is, when a man asks a woman to borrow money, you have to ask yourself, so this man had nobody else to ask? Nobody else he can go to? And if he has family and friends, because there's some situations where the guy literally may not really have family and friends and things like that. So again, that could be very different. That could be an exception to the rule. But when he has those people in his life, but he didn't go to them, now we have to ask why. Because what you'll find in many situations is he doesn't go to them because he's already burned that bridge with them. He doesn't go to them because he's not good for it. All right? And so now you're the new victim into who he will get money from, and now have all these excuses onto when he can pay you back. Which, I have to say this, if a man's going to ask you to borrow money and you're seriously contemplating and considering it, this might sound silly to some people, ask for that man's credit report. Ask to see that man's credit report. Because listen, again, I need you to have a clear picture on his financial responsibility. Is this a man who pays back his bills and can be trusted with money? All right, then maybe we can make an exception here. But you see that report and it's littered with stuff. Again, more evidence to where it's like, this might not be the person you want to loan money to. But again, if you insist, I'm going to at least say this. Do not give what you are not prepared to lose. All right? If you're going to do it, make sure it is an amount that you are okay with walking away from. So if he can't pay you back, you're not going to be like the girl I mentioned in the beginning that is just waiting to get her money back. No. Whatever that amount is, different people, for some people, $5,000 may not be it might be a drop in the bucket for some people. For someone else, that's their whole life savings. That's their whole bank account. So you got to be mindful of what you're comfortable with. But yes, if you only give what you're comfortable walking away from, outside of that loan the money stuff, I'm not a big fan of it. I'll tell you that much. All right, so before we get to the next point, be sure to go to my StephanSpeakShop.com. Click the link in the description or in the comment section where you can get tickets to my latest events, my books, opportunities for coaching one-on-one, asking me questions. All the resources you need are all there. Again, go to StephanSpeakShop.com. Excuse me. So now, another huge nice girl habit, quote unquote nice girl habit that needs to be broken immediately is trying to avoid conflict by not addressing issues, okay? So this kind of like this kind of goes hand in hand with the whole not being honest about the sexual performance, right? But of course, it's much bigger than that because there's so many other issues that occur in a relationship where there's a lot of women out of fear of creating a conflict of any sort sweeps it under the rug, all right? There's a lot of women who don't ask the questions that are lingering in their head, the things that they're wondering about because they're worried about pushing the man away. And I always say you cannot push a man away who is truly and seriously into you, all right? Now, of course, it's not what you say, it's how you say. You have to be mindful of the way you're delivering the message and asking these questions, right? But if you do so in a very positive, loving manner, no man who's serious about you should have an issue with it or will have an issue with it, all right? If he takes issue with you wanting to address things, it's a very good chance that he's just using you. He's just trying to have a casual situation, whatever the case may be, right? Or he may be a man who is not emotionally ready to be in a relationship because he has not matured in that way or he has not healed the parts of him that would allow him to be more receptive to you when you want to have these discussions, okay? But you're going to have a harder time exposing that if you're constantly holding back what you need to express and talk about. And one of the unfortunate things I see happen all the time is like, I've had tons of situations where women will come to me, ask me, well, Stephan, what did he mean when he said this? And of course, I can give you my insight and my breakdown, but I have to say, like, why didn't you ask him? Like, I can only speculate based off my experience and all the people I've dealt with, but the best way to go about this is to allow him to tell you what he meant. And again, out of fear of, I don't know, him even thinking the wrong thing. Like, so for example, you may have a woman who doesn't want to ask how the man feels about her because she's like, well, I don't want to come across like I'm sweating him, like I'm thirsty or whatever the case may be. And it's like, yeah, but you're over here stressing about it. You're over here letting these unanswered questions drive you crazy. And what you're doing instead is you're going and talking to everyone else, your friends, your family, me, pastor, whoever, right? And no one can give you full peace because we're not him. And you still don't know what his direct answer would be. So let's put it all to rest. Just go to him. And again, if you say to me, well, I try to talk to him, he doesn't want to talk. Well, then there is the proof that, again, he is either not serious or not ready to be with you. So be willing to have those discussions and don't run away from it. because you're only going to create bigger problems later. So here's another nice girl habit that needs to be broken. And this one is not just when it comes to men, but in general. And that is being there for everyone else but yourself. So again, there's a lot of women who are pouring into so many other people, whether that be family, friends, kids, a man, whoever. And they hide behind this, but I'm a giver, I'm a lover, I'm a nurturer, all these things. And okay, cool. Like I said earlier, cool. But when you're crossing a line to where you are depleted, you are drained, you're not getting what you need, that's a problem. Okay? And for some people, for some women, your desire or your willingness to be there for everyone but yourself is one rooted in a lack of self-love. It's rooted in wanting the validation and approval of others. Okay? It's rooted in wanting to be seen and viewed as this superwoman, but on the inside, you're falling apart. And the thing is, if you're not good to you, eventually you won't be able to be good to them either. And it's an unhealthy dynamic to have to navigate, all right? You've got to make sure you are making time for you. You've got to create a balance in life that allows you to rest and recharge. Like even when it comes to relationships and marriages, like one thing I believe in when possible, because I know for everybody this is not a feasible thing, but I believe everyone needs a real day off, all right? At least one real day off. So if I'm sitting with a married couple, I'm like, all right, listen, if possible, let's pick a day for the wife. This is her day off, meaning she don't gotta cook, she don't gotta deal with these kids, she don't gotta do nothing. Hopefully that's a day off. She doesn't work that day. That's her true day off. Leave her alone. Let her go do whatever she has to do to revamp, recharge, get her mind right, so she'll have the energy for the rest of the week that she needs to show up for whoever she needs to show up for, all right? And in return, the man gets a day off. Same thing. Kids don't bother him. He don't have no responsibilities that day outside of emergencies, right? And he just gets to relax. I think that would be so great for everyone to have if they can implement that. But while you're even single, like you gotta create that structure now. And you gotta make sure you're giving yourself that rest. Like for me, my day off is Saturday, unless I'm like on tour or something like that. But when I'm not traveling, Saturday is just, all right, I don't work, I don't do anything. That's essentially my Sabbath day. That's when I'll pray all these things, or pray more. But either way, like that's my day. And it took a long time for me to get to that point of actually using that day as a day off, because I'll still be tempted to do some work, and I still do sometimes, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. But it has helped. It has helped. So for you as a woman, you gotta be there for yourself. You gotta recognize the things that you need and how you can better take care of you, and trust even the people you're trying to show up for will all benefit more when you're able to be energized and have the time to yourself needed to be the best version of you. All right, so now we got two more. This one is very important that I speak about. Another nice girl habit you need to stop ASAP is holding on to him out of pity, okay, and sympathy. So there's a lot of relationships right now that are being held together because the woman feels sorry for the man. That can come in various different dynamics. I've seen situations where, she's done with the guy, but they are living together, and to her it's like, well, if I put him out, he'll have nowhere to go, so I let him stay, right? Again, being quote unquote nice, but no, there's something else going on there. It could be, all right, I'm not happy here. I tried to break up with him, but he was crying and I felt so bad and I took him back, right? There could be, we didn't even get to the breakup part. She's just terrified of hurting him because she knows he's so into her, but she is not happy there. Okay. And again, there's various other scenarios we can talk about. But the bottom line is you cannot have a successful, healthy relationship out of pity and sympathy. And though you think you are doing something for that man, you are actually making it worse. He may not understand that right now. Like there's probably a man who might hate my guts because his woman heard this video and decided to let him go. But he doesn't realize I just helped him be set free. I helped him because he was never going to get what he needed from this relationship because her heart wasn't really there. She was not really into this man. And again, she can only do so much when her fuel is sympathy and pity. All right? And I hate to say it, but there's a lot of situations where this is happening. And even if the woman stays with that man, eventually she will cheat on him. Plain and simple. Because if she has to pity the man that she's with, trust and believe that the sexual desire is going to take a hit. The attraction is going to take a hit. So many other things are going to start to fall to the wayside if they haven't already been subpar, right? They will at some point, and this is only going to get worse. But it's crazy because I've seen tons of relationships where the quality of the relationship is trash, is horrible, and people still holding on for dear life, okay? And again, that's because there's a lot of unhealed traumas and deeper issues, and then there's other factors sometimes that play into it as well. But plain and simple, I simply cannot co-sign or encourage a woman to remain with a man when all that's really keeping her, well, what's driving her to keep her there is sympathy and pity. And so, again, as much as you may fear hurting him, you got to you're doing yourself and him a big favor by doing what needs to be done. And someone has to do what needs to be done. Now, of course, for anyone listening to this video, pray about it, talk to God. I don't want you just to hear this and run out and like, all right, I'm done, okay? Talk to God. For some of you, God's been telling you to let go. And maybe this video and me talking right now just gave you the confirmation you needed. I still say double check with God to make sure that's exactly what this is. But the point is, if it's time to let him go, it's time to let him go. And don't let those feelings get in the way of what needs to be done. All right, now last but not least, another nice girl habit you need to break immediately is constantly seeking people's approval. All right, so we're going to make this nice and short and fast. We kind of talked about it earlier, and at the end of the day, some of you are trying to accommodate others and do things that really aren't best for you because you want the approval from others, okay? And for some of you, for many of you, that need to seek approval stems from unresolved issues from your childhood, started in your household, whether the source of it came from your mother, your father, or both. For most people, that's where it started. Okay, now of course, there's exceptions to every rule. Some people are going to be different, but you got to be able to recognize what's causing you to always need people's approval. The only approval you need ultimately is God's. And you have to have confidence within yourself and know who you are and not need to prove it to anybody. But I understand it can be a struggle. So you really want to make sure, this is why when I talk about healing, a lot of times people just assume it's about healing from past relationships. No, it's healing from everything. Childhood, romantic relationships, friendships, you name it. Anything that has hurt you, anything that has created a negative cycle in your life, all of that needs to be released from your spirit, released from your mind, and allow you to walk freely into a much better, healthier place. So do the work to heal. Make sure you find that confidence within yourself and stop allowing this title of nice girl to fool you into accepting or doing things that are not best for you, because you deserve much, much better than that. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 7 things men say that are huge red flags. You know, I'm a firm believer that if we're gonna have successful relationships, what is best in the majority of situations